The Wall Street Journal reported this week that Hamas militants behind the surprise attacks in Israel over the weekend raised millions in crypto, highlighting how the US and Israel have struggled to cut off foreign funding to organizations like Hamas. How does this affect crypto's image, which has already taken a beating in the past year with events like the collapse of FTX?
Superficially, it's not great for the image, given that it was used as a mechanism for funding demonic, barbaric acts. However, you see how rapidly authorities have been able to use the blockchain technology and its public distributed ledger to trace donors, to freeze wallets and whatnot. So crypto is really a double-edged sword. It's quick, it's fast, it's cheap to transfer money, but the fact is every single transaction done is memorialized forever on an immutable public blockchain. So it makes the forensic accounting and tracking down the supporters of this unspeakable evil actually a lot easier than going through the banking system or other forms of money laundering, such as watches, artwork, stamps. There's all manner of ways to transmit illicit funds.
Expanding on what you just brought up, this week we also learned Israeli police have reportedly frozen crypto accounts tied to Hamas, which has been designated a foreign terrorist organization by the US and has been sanctioned by officials here. Israeli business news outlet Kalkalist reported that authorities were able to freeze the accounts with the help of Binance. What is your reaction to that news, and how does it tie into the idea that blockchain technology can track this sort of illicit activity?
Yeah, a lot of people think of crypto as just this completely anonymous technology, but it's not, right? So like Binance, once a wallet is identified as being belonging to Hamas or a member of Hamas, they are able to very quickly seize that, freeze it. There is no recourse on Hamas's part. And then, like I said earlier, those wallet addresses, those transaction IDs are immutable and public. So people can track down the donors. And it takes a bit of work, but the FBI was able to bust all sorts of illegal activity years ago on the famous Silk Road criminal website.
How incumbent is it upon crypto companies like Binance to track down crypto financed crime compared to law enforcement? How much of the responsibility should be put on those crypto firms?
Well, what we've seen in practice is it's really a joint effort. The cyber law enforcement world has really done incredible work over years and years tracking down illegal money laundering, and even in a case like this where it's like 90 some million, the traditional banking system, major banks have pled guilty to felony money laundering also within 10 years, approaching $1 trillion, like HSBC, JP Morgan, the biggest amongst them.
Do you see this sort of coordination between crypto companies and law enforcement becoming a normal thing as crypto crime becomes a mainstream concern?
Yeah, honestly, it already is. And it's a bit ironic that Binance has been so cooperative, as Binance has been the object of unconstitutional SEC enforcement actions, where in the absence of statutory authority, the SEC has sued major crypto exchanges such as Binance, such as Coinbase. But you see cooperation all the time between both of those exchanges and the US government to fight crime.
Pointing to another recent conflict, Russia's invasion of Ukraine also sparked fears that crypto was financing violence. How effective were sanctions or law enforcement actions at the start of that conflict? And are there any learning lessons from that war that can be implemented now?
Yeah, I mean, the sanctions, I think, were really effective in alienating a lot of U.S. allies. And a lot of allies viewed those as overbroad. And FTX, which currently has the criminal trial going on, was actually really at the forefront of laundering money, it appears, in that conflict.
Speaking of FTX, you are a trial attorney. So, what do you make of SBF's trial going on right now? And what are the implications for the crypto industry?
Well, the evidence I've seen thus far is very damning. Things like creating a random number generator to display random amounts of customer balances after having paperwork saying that their funds would be segregated. That's really damning. And I think with pieces of evidence like that, SBF is going to be very hard pressed to claim that he didn't have intent when he used allegedly the customer segregated brokerage funds to fund the proprietary trading at Alameda. Long term for the crypto industry, this is a good thing. One of the problems has been the US has been so slow to implement laws and regulations, and only now 12, 13 years into crypto's existence is engaging in regulation by enforcement, which I believe to be unconstitutional, has really set crypto up where there's a lot of bad actors in very influential positions. So if you look at someone like SBF, who seems pretty obviously to likely be guilty, putting him behind bars would be great for the industry.
And of course, we're hearing from some of SBF's closest friends and former colleagues. They're testifying this week. We're hearing from Gary Wang, the co founder of FTX, and SBF's former girlfriend, who was the CEO of Alameda Research, the sister hedge fund of FTX. And a lot of information is coming to the surface now, things that we didn't know before. So, how does this all play into SBF's case? How is it going to impact his case?
I mean, 90% of what they have said is just deeply, deeply incriminating towards SBF. The 10% remainder, as a trial lawyer, you always have to question incentives. And the fact that Gary and Caroline have pled guilty, have received reduced sentences, presents a conflict of interest. So, well, I think what he's done is basically indefensible. I think the defense will try their best to highlight those potential conflicts and potentially question the credibility. But the mountain of evidence seems to be pretty overwhelming against SBF.
Do you expect SBF to testify during the trial? Would it behoove him to take the stand?
So yes and no, respectively. He seems to be an unabashed narcissist, and I think he has the delusion that he will be able to persuade the jury that this was all one big mistake and misunderstanding, and he's just a hippie with this crazy hair and disheveled, and he don't know what's going on. But the testimony has shown that he actually contrived that image to give plausible deniability to his fraud. So I do think he will testify. I do think he's arrogant to the point where he thinks that he could charm the jury, but I do not think it will be successful. And I do not think it's in his best interest, which then in turn is, of course, in the best interest of those who mean to do good in the crypto industry and put people like him in jail.